Somebody has to say it. This is a gross overreaction from one game of the NBA playoffs, but I did not like what I saw. Somebody has to say it. The Detroit Pistons have always been mid. Allow me to explain. What's going on, guys? BoxInOne here, a basketball social media podcast and hoops content platform created by roischand and Joachim myself talking right now. Let's just get straight into it. Yesterday afternoon, the Orlando Magic walked into your trap, Detroit, and they took over your trap, JB Bickerstaff. What happened? I'll tell you exactly what happened. The issue with how this Detroit Pistons team is constructed is the fact that they're building around Cade Cunningham like he's James Harden instead of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, what does that mean, you're asking? When we look at James Harden's teams on Houston, to be honest, those Houston teams were still completely undermanned, but when you had Ryan Anderson, Trevor Ariza, Eric Gordon, Clint Capella, he had a lot of guys on the wings he could pass to. He had a couple of good bigs he could pick and roll with, and then he got Chris Paul as the second facilitator and another scoring option. When we look at how Cade Cunningham's team is constructed, you've got Jenkins, then you've got Harris, you've got Robinson, you've got Herder. They all kind of play on the wing. You got Jalen Duren as his primary second option, and to be honest, Jalen Duren yesterday was rendered completely obsolete when you had the size of the Orlando Magic giving him problems in the post. I digress, though. And then you have Ausar Thompson, right, who is kind of like the PJ Tucker. Obviously, Thompson's defensive ceiling and offensive ceiling, if he gets that jump shot and handles down, is a lot higher than PJ Tucker. But Tucker on that Houston team, he was a lockup guy. When you look at how the Detroit Pistons are constructed, it's like a baby version of those Houston Rockets teams that they said, all right, James Harden, go to war with the 2018 Warriors with Kevin Durant. And Harden was still taking them to 6 or 7 games. Again, no pun intended, just because of the playoffs. We will be saying 6-7 a lot on this channel, not because we like the joke, but because game 6 and game 7, they are both very possible, as well as the 6th and 7th seeds in their respective conferences. I digress, though. The way the Detroit Pistons are built is like a baby version of those teams. But I think what people don't understand is that James Harden, as a shooting guard slash point guard tweener, was such a one-of-one talent. He could average a 40-point triple-double. He could go for 36, 9, and 9 and make it look absolutely easy. And I know Luka Doncic has been able to do the same thing, but when we look at the way James Harden did it in the perimeter, as a slasher, as a guy getting to the line, as a guy who's getting 4-point play, a guy who could have 53 and get a triple-double, a guy who I believe has a 60-point triple-double. James Harden could literally do it all as a scorer, as a facilitator, in how he scored, and the aggression and the way he commanded the defenses. If Harden drove with that little tween floater, the defense is going to collapse. He swings it to the corner. Ariza's there. Anderson's there. Gordon is there. Tucker's there. Oh, pick and roll with Clint Capella. That's a lob now because the big decided to go up to James to try to block the floater. Now, James, instead of a floater, he's going to throw that pass to Capella. That's an easy lob. Pick and roll game on lock. Even if we look at Cleveland now, what James Harden is doing with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, crazy stuff. James Harden is going to unlock your bigs no matter what. He did the same thing on the Los Angeles Clippers with Zubac. I digress. Enough James Harden glaze. When we look at the Detroit Pistons, they want Cade Cunningham to do that. And this is not a diss to Cade Cunningham or any other point guard, right? You're not going to replicate prime James Harden production. You're just not. But on top of that, the Detroit Pistons don't understand how much of a floor raiser Cade Cunningham is. Cade Cunningham has to do absolutely everything he can to get his guys involved and get them open before he gets going. Because in a game like last night, where Cade does go for 39 on 48 from the floor, Cade got his and nobody else got theirs. Not because Cade didn't pass the ball, but because nobody else knows how to get theirs. Cade needed a second option in this free agency, whether it was Michael Porter Jr. I was kind of alarmed when the Pistons were like, yeah, the only guy we're interested in is Anthony Davis, but outside of that, we like how our team is constructed. You like how your team is constructed? Like the team that does not have a second option and had to sign Jenkins to a two-way because they didn't even know he was that good until the Wizards game? That roster? Like, I understand not wanting to completely blow up your young core and replicate the same success you had last year, but in all honesty, the Pistons team last year was a little bit better. You had Dennis Schroeder, who's an on-ball creator. You had Malik Beasley. You had these guys that could get their own shot and could also be reliable snipers and defensive guys. Obviously, Malik Beasley probably would have re-signed if it wasn't for that whole gambling scandal, and then Dennis Schroeder obviously going somewhere else, taking his talents elsewhere. But the point is, I don't understand how the Detroit Pistons front office completely lost the plot. Cade Cunningham is amazing. Cade Cunningham needs other amazing guys around him for Detroit to win. Because if you're trying to win a chip with your second option being Jalen Duren and Beef Stew as the other guy in the post with him, you're not going anywhere. You play Cleveland in the second round if you get past Orlando. You're not going anywhere. Cade Cunningham cannot be expected to drop 40, 10, and 10 every single night. He averaged 26, 10, and 8 on the season. Cade Cunningham cannot be expected to do that with a 14-point per game increase, so 40, 10, and 8 every night to beat the 8th seed. Why are we expecting Cade Cunningham to do that, guys? I'm not saying you guys are expecting it, but why is the Detroit Pistons front office playing in Cade's face like this? It was very clear that the Pistons, they lacked another offensive engine. Whether it was Michael Porter Jr., a guy who can create on ball and also go for 25 just being a spot-up shooter. Devin Booker, obviously that's the name I think everybody wants to go to Detroit. I'm not sure how likely that would have been in the free agency period, especially since Book just signed a nearly $75 million a year extension with the Phoenix Suns into the 2029-2030 season. But that's the guy people wanted Detroit to target. Get Cade Cunningham some help. He can't be forced to play the 1, the 2, and the 3, and then have Paolo Banchero on him or guard Paolo Banchero on the other end. There were multiple times I saw Cade Cunningham on Paolo Banchero, probably because he's one of the only guys who has the lateral quickness and the physicality to guard him. But it's like, bro, get this man some help. And before I wrap up, just to clarify what I mean by they built around him like Harden instead of SGA, when you look at SGA supporting cast, J-Dub can score by himself and also get to the cup. Chet can score by himself but also be big. Jalen Williams, 3-shooter, can get to the cup, can create for himself. Isaiah Joe, Cason Wallace, AJ Mitchell, Jared McCain, etc. They can all create for themselves. My point being, when you look at Houston Harden's teams, it was wings who would space out the floor for Harden, lock up, and then Harden would find them. But that's not enough in today's NBA anymore, especially if you're not having the same offensive volume as James Harden. SGA averaged 31, 4, and 6 on the season. Obviously, he's having one of the most efficient guard seasons in NBA history, but he also has guys around him for a game like the Phoenix Suns last night where he goes 5 of 18 from the floor. They still win by 35. If Cade Cunningham went 5 of 18 from the floor tonight, the Detroit Pistons would have lost by 60. They straight up would have lost by 60. It's the fact that they don't have anybody else that can create at that clip if Cade is having an off night, and that Cade needs to do every single thing on the court in order for them to win. Long story short, if you paid attention to the Detroit Pistons roster construction and how those stat lines were looking, again, Cade had to drop 46 points to beat the Washington Wizards. He played 42 minutes and he went 14 of 45 from the field. He was just slashing and driving and getting free throws. That should not be required to beat the Washington Wizards. It should not. Pre-Trae Young AD trade, pre-possibly landing AJ DeBansta, pre-the Great Washington Awakening. Again, we're pushing Wizards propaganda on BoxInOne all summer long. I digress, though. That should not be required to beat the Washington Wizards. It should just not. And the fact that the office didn't see that and go, yo, we need to get Cade some help. Nah, we good in the East. Well, you're down 0-1 to the 8th seed. And granted, I'm not saying that Anthony Black and Banchero and Wagner, etc. are not talented, but this is the 8th seed and you're the 1 seed. You got to make the 8th seed look like the 8th seed is playing the 1 seed, not like the 8th seed is the 4th or 5th seed in the second round playing the 1 seed. With that being said, though, guys, that is going to do it for us today. Again, as always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow all of these socials in the description: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, Spotify, wherever you get your hoops content, we're there. And obviously like and subscribe on YouTube where you're watching this video. Again, as always, if you like the content, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts down below, and we will see you all in the next one.